Well, good morning, Crossroads Nation. How are you? I see if people are streaming in. Great to have you this morning. My name is Skip Nelson. I'm a financial advisor with 𝙊𝙧𝙜𝙖𝙣 Financial and one of the many volunteers that bring you Minnesota Crossroads. We are so excited that you are joining us this morning. We had a great morning for you. And so as people continue to stream in, I want to touch on a couple things that are in store for you today. First, I'm going to go through and offer a brief thing from the Bible. And then we will meet Brian Bach, who is going to talk about some faith-related elements of his career. Great guy and has been very involved in Minnesota Crossroads over the years. And then we're going to hear from Rich Braden, who is somebody who has really been involved in Minnesota Crossroads as a coach, a teacher, an advisor, just a wonderful guy, incredible knowledge. And he's going to be talking about organizing your job search, I believe is his topic today. He could talk on just about any topic regarding job search. So whatever he touches on is going to be excellent, and you will definitely take away many, many nuggets of knowledge from what Rich has to say. And then I will come back when Rich is done and go through and touch on many of the resources that you can access through Minnesota Crossroads that is designed to help you specifically in your job search. There is a ton of stuff out there, and Minnesota Crossroads has got a lot of wonderful things I know that was incredibly helpful in my own job search. So I will share those with you. And we'll even talk about how you can get a free copy of this book called How Long, O Lord, How Long? Devotions for the Unemployed and Those Who Love Them. And so I'm actually going to touch on that book very briefly and talk about something called the Lotus Flower. Have any of you ever heard of the lotus flower? I had not, but I connected with someone, and it talks about a woman that had a picture of a lotus flower in her office, and the person that was going in to talk to her didn't know why, and finally asked her, what is it about the lotus flower? He said, well, do you know anything about it? He said, no. He said, well, the lotus flower survives and thrives in the worst conditions you can imagine, just muck and mud and whatever. That's where the lotus flower survives. Now, I don't know about you, but how many of you feel in your job transition that you're kind of mired in a bunch of muck and garbage? I know I did. It was not what I chose to do, and it felt like just a bad space. I didn't like it. It wasn't where I wanted to be. And so it could be any element of life or work. But the point is you can still bloom. You can still come out of it well. It comes down to a choice, really. What are you going to do when you find yourself in muck, whether it is some life circumstance or job transition that we may find ourselves in? It certainly qualifies as muck, and it can be very pleasant. But the point is that how we respond to that muck is a choice, right? We can be down and woe is me, and have a pity party and all that. And I had those too. Let me be honest. I went through periods like that, but it did me no good. And it made the process even worse, quite frankly. And so I had to consciously decide that, no, I'm not going there. I'm not going there. I'm going to focus on the positive things in my life. And I'm going to work to blossom and to learn from this circumstance. And what positive can I get from it? Because there is positive, whether it's the people you meet or extra time you have to spend with family and ailing parents or your kids or whatever, volunteer. There are positive elements to your job transition. What are you going to do with the muck you find yourself in? And I'm reminded of Ecclesiastes 3:11, where it says, God has made everything beautiful in its time. So God is in charge of your job search. He does have a plan, and it is in his time, not yours or mine. And that can be frustrating, but lean into that. God has got a plan and will create something more beautiful than you can imagine. And so focus on that, and hopefully that will make your job transition blossom. So let's bring in Brian. Brian is the founder of a recruiting firm called Hanson Beck. It's a retained recruiting firm, and Brian's been in that space for many, many years, knows it very, very well, and is a phenomenal resource for anything job transition related because he knows this space. And he's a good guy. He provides great service in this space, which isn't always the case. And so I'm really excited to hear what he has to say. It's always a treat. And so good morning, Brian.
Thank you, Skip. Good morning. And good morning to everyone that's joining us this morning. Skip's little introduction there, not of me necessarily, but of his own journey and things that he experienced are great segues for what I want to talk about today. And as Skip mentioned, I've been in recruiting for over 25 years. So I've interviewed well over 1,000 people in my career. And I experienced that in a very unique way in things that I have observed. So I want to share with you those observations to enhance your experience as you're navigating the process. I would say this, most people in interview processes tend to fall within the bell-shaped curve. Most of them sort of are average interviewers and very few stand out. So I want to give you sort of how do those few that stand out show up and what makes them different. And it is, for me, it becomes very spiritually inclined. People that are spiritually inclined understand things at a different level. And when they do that, all of a sudden they start to show up different and it becomes much more attractive, not just to me who has a very strong spiritual inclination, but to even those that don't. They don't know necessarily why these people are showing up in a more interesting way, but they do recognize that they are, and they're always finalist candidates in the process. So I want to kind of open that up to you, make you aware of what that is. And really the focus of that will be on the three major theological virtues of faith, hope, and love. And how does having those three virtues kind of open up in your life, elevate you into a real practical position of attractiveness to an employer. That's what we're going to try to get to today in 10 minutes. So I don't have a lot of time to do that, but hopefully you'll kind of understand where I'm going. So first of all, let's start with faith. Faith definitionally is a really or at least a real technical definition of faith is an assent of the mind to the things revealed. Who is the revealer? Well, that would be God. He reveals things to us. And do we allow our mind to ascend to those things as being revealed by God? So in a job search around you, most candidates that I interview don't know themselves very well. They know all of the things that they've done, the great projects that they've led, the people that they've led, the accomplishments that they've had, the things that they've implemented, the efficiencies that they've gained, maybe some revenue that they've generated or cost savings that those are all what's. And every candidate, this is the bell-shaped curve, can tell me the what's. And they all sound very similar. Again, we're sort of in the middle of the bell-shaped curve when we land only on all of these great what's that we've accomplished. What separates somebody is that they understand who they are to a deeper level. We never understand ourselves perfectly. God knows us perfectly. We don't even know ourselves perfectly. But those that tend to have a better, deeper understanding of themselves, in a sense, have let their minds ascended to that those things that God has revealed to them stand out in the interview. So that's your job. Get to know yourself. Well, how do you do that? And my advice to all candidates is go beyond the what's and start asking yourself, how did I achieve that? Why did I achieve that? And be able to articulate your hows and whys. Now you as a who start to show up in the interview. That's infinitely attractive to someone like me that's interviewing somebody. It's infinitely attractive to anybody. That's the great adventure of interviewing candidates, is when the who shows up, because there's something really unique about you. But you have to sort of get there. What is unique? What did God give me that makes me different? Start thinking about hows and whys to get there. So that's faith. Hope is very connected. All of these virtues are very connected. So hope is deep desire for something, and then a reasonable expectation of receiving it. So we desire it and we expect to receive it. There's layers of hope in our life, right? I hope for a sunny day because I'm going golfing today, or I'm hanging out with my kids at the pool today. I hope it's a nice day. So that's one layer of hope. But there is a hope that elevates all of our being and allows us to endure anything because of the hope that we can grasp onto that is transcendent in our lives. So I think it was St. Paul in the book of Romans says, in hope we are saved. So there's something particular about hope. And that particularity in regards to a job search is so vital. In hope we are saved. Well, how in the world is hope salvific? Well, if we think about what hope is, expectation or I should say desire and expectation. I desire something and I expect to receive it. If we are saved by that, that just means that if we go back to the Jews who had this expectation or this desire for a savior and an expectation that the savior would show up. The problem with some Jews is they didn't let their minds ascend to the thing that was revealed. When Jesus came, they had their own pride sort of block that he actually was it. They didn't fully ascend to that reality that God revealed to them. That's why a lot of Jews struggled with who Jesus was. But the ones that did, they had faith, they let their mind ascend to that reality, and then they had this expectation that he would show up. So they coupled their desire with expectation and faith. They recognized who he was when he showed up. So your job around hope is to have that desire, have that expectation, and then let it move you to the realities. There's one of the greatest movies of all time is Shawshank Redemption, and it's a whole exposition on hope. What did hope do to Andy Dufresne, who was wrongly imprisoned, and how did that create a behavior in him that had him redeemed? Shawshank Redemption. He was redeemed at the end because of hope. What did that hope do? Andy Dufresne picked at a wall for over 20 years in his prison cell, and he created a tunnel to get out. He was there, he was imprisoned wrongfully, he had hope. That hope endured 20 years of a very troubling prison experience as displayed in the movie. But it was hope that got him through it. It made him act, and that's what hope does. It calls us to understand that expectation is going to be there for us, and it motivates us to act. Pick at that wall, even for 20 years. Love the movie. I always say kids at Christmas time, so that week up to Christmas, maybe the month leading up to Christmas, kids have this indelible hope they place on Christmas Day. And as a parent watching that, I realized I could ask my kids to do anything and they would do it with great joy. Didn't matter what it was. Outside of the Christmas season, I could ask them to do those same tasks, and they would act like I was asking them to do something that was so painful to them that they couldn't hardly stand it. But during Christmas season, when there was this hope, they acted different. So that hope is, I would say it creates in us this ability to endure, to do things with great positivity and just a different disposition. So think about how hope can do that for you. Have this transcendent hope and expectation. So the transcendent hope is obviously in this redemption. What happens to us at the end of time is like Christmas to a child. It's this great wonder that we're all wired to receive. But we also have hopes, like a hope for a sunny day, hope for a job. We can execute hope at different levels. And that's your job, is let hope inspire you, motivate you, move you, and do it in a way that will endure struggles. So I'm just going to share my screen real quick. I'll show you what sort of a funny little anecdote looks like. So there you go, Prince Charles. He endured a long time to get his job, and he stayed with it that whole time. So that's just good humor for us on that. And then we'll finish with faith, or with love. I'm sorry. It all culminates in love. So love isn't a sentimentality, and it's not even, love isn't even about me. It's about what I can give. I give love to others, right? And love definitionally is sort of hijacked today. It can mean, there can be some emotional connections to love for sure, some psychological connections, but love is really an action, an act of the will. So, I would say in a very paradoxical icon in Christian faith is what love looks like to a Christian. I'm going to see if I can get this to you without it blurring. It's blurring. Anyway, I think you get the point. You get the image of this man pinned to a tree, and that is the great icon of love in the Christian tradition. And you're thinking, what? How is that love? I mean, this person pinned to a tree, that looks like evil. Well, the reality is, and why that is a depiction of love, is because what is Christ doing on the cross but giving himself completely away? He gives himself, he has no power, no authority, he can't even move his own hands. He's pinned to a tree, giving himself away. Obviously, if we press that a little bit further, he's taking on the sins of the world by giving himself away that way. That's what love is supposed to represent. It's not about him, it's about what he does for everyone else. And that's what we're supposed to do with love, is make it about everyone else. So to connect that to a job search, most candidates I hear will use language that sounds like this: I want to make sure I'm setting myself up for success in my next job. And so if I slow that down, does that sound like love? I want to make sure I'm setting myself up for success in my next job. That makes it all about you. And there's nothing intrinsically wrong with that idea of trying to set yourself up for success, but you can make that altruistic and make it sound like love. And that is, I want to make sure that I am the right person to solve your problems, to help you in this job, and really understand if I can be the one to help you. That makes it about them. And just that slight turn to make it about them and setting yourself up to succeed for them is an altruistic turn. And again, it's subtle in the mind of the person that hears that, but they'll recognize it, whether they know what you're doing or not, doesn't matter. They recognize that is different, and it is different. So there's the connection between faith, hope, and love. If you can execute those in your job search, it'll elevate your job search. It'll elevate how you come across to those that are talking to you, whether it's in networking, whether it's in interviews, whatever it may be. Bring those virtues into your job search, and you will be far better off in doing so. So I'll turn it back to Skip and ultimately to Rich, and wish you all the very best in your job searches.
Thanks, Brian. Wow, I always learn things when Brian talks, and doesn't matter the subject. And that was just fantastic. So I hope it blessed you as it blessed me. But our next presenter is going to be Mr. Rich Braden. Rich had a varied career at the VP level in various Fortune 100 companies, done a lot of things in a career, but he's also been just such a wonderful volunteer at Minnesota Crossroads for many years in many capacities, and shared his wisdom about the job transition space. And we are so fortunate to have him here today to talk about a critical area of job transition, one that I didn't do so well. And I wish I had Rich's wisdom when I was at my job transition, because I wasn't very organized. But this will bless you, and it is information that will really, really benefit your job search. So get a pen and paper, be ready to take some notes, because it will be worth it. We are thrilled to have you this morning, Rich, and I'll turn it over to you. Good morning.
Well, thanks, Skip. So just so I can get people acclimated to the chat, I'm going to turn off my camera and just chat where you think my background is from. Anybody? Okay, let's see if you can use your chat function. See the background? I hope it's obvious to many people. Yeah, there we go. Keep going. Specifically, where in Duluth is this? This is iconic. Superior, oh, almost. Canal Park, yay, you win. If we had a prize, I'd give it to you, Jake. Good, Tom. Thanks very much. Yeah, so I'm a native of Duluth, and I use so in my job I speak to people all over the country. I'm in the ed tech field, and I use different backgrounds from Minnesota, and it's really fun to see people acclimate to the Great Lakes. And I've got pictures of Split Rock Lighthouse, for example, that I'll use, and I'll say this is in the Great Lakes, and the Split Rock Lighthouse in particular looks like it's from the Nova Scotia, Maine area or something like that. And it's just a real fun thing to explore when you're talking to people from different parts of the country, because they're not very well acclimated to Minnesota. I encourage you to do that as kind of a fun thing to do as you do your Zoom calls, is change your backgrounds and create great conversation with people. Anyways, so let me put my screen share up here, and let me know, Skip, when you can see that. Give me a high sign. Okay, cool. So my topic for the brief time we have together this morning is organizing your job search. And as a disclaimer, I'm not going to suggest to you that you don't know how to organize, or that you're highly organized. You're all professionals. You just happen to be in transition right now. And that's kind of the point, is that now that you're in transition, organizing does take on a different flavor because the context is changing. So we're just going to be talking about highlights, things that I've observed in the 10 years that I've been teaching at Crossroads, with all the folks that I've encountered, and what they've, pain points that they've encountered, things that they should be thinking about as a difference in their situation right now. So that's kind of the point of my conversation today. And please chat it up in the chat if you've got observations of your own about do's and don'ts and that sort of thing, so that we can all learn from your experience as well. Okay. So I grew up in management in the Covey era, the 7 Habits era. One of the things that always impressed me about Covey's teachings was how practical he was. And one of the things he talked about was that if you have 3 minutes in your day, spend the first 2 organizing the last so it's most productive, which as a metaphor is really kind of cool. So this thing from Napoleon Hill of planning your work and working your plan couldn't be more important today as you go through transition. Why? Because you're now suddenly thrown into chaos in many instances. If you get laid off, get the notice, whatever it might be, your world's upside down. I don't care really how put together you are, how many skills you have. Suddenly you're in a topsy-turvy. And so it kind of looks like this. But yet through all that chaos, through all that distraction and noise, you've got to find a way through it. And so the old input, process, output is really what I resort to in terms of organizing, getting directed, put your goals in place, make sure that you're now productive, if you will, through this process so that you have the most successful outcome. Okay. So what I try to encourage people to do is certainly surrender this situation to the Lord, to God. And he's got some pretty salient things to say about this in the Bible in terms of getting organized and being organized. Couple of things. Number one, I just showed you the input, process, output slide. As a process, 1 Corinthians 14:40, but everything should be done in a fitting and orderly way. That is beautiful. That is so apropos in terms of having a process, having a vision in place in terms of how you're going to get this done. Organization requires documentation. Habuka, and I can't pronounce that right. Anytime I try to say it, and the Lord answered me, write the vision, make it a plan on tablets, so he may run who reads it. And then organizing takes effort. And this is something that's really important. Proverbs 13:4, the soul of the sluggard craves and gets nothing, while the soul of the diligent is richly supplied. So this is just a small sampling of what the Lord has to say about organization and organizational systems. For those of you that are perplexed, just surrender this to him and he will find the way for you. I guarantee it. Okay. Instead of talking about an exhaustive list of do's and don'ts, I just got some highlights here, some things that I've observed in the folks that I've encountered in my small groups. And we'll start with some of the don'ts. Number one, underestimating the work required to land your next opportunity. You've heard this cliche many times. Getting a job is work. Finding a job is work. And that is absolutely the case. not everybody has the circumstance where they can just devote 40 hours or full-time effort to a job search. If you only have 4 hours, make it the best. If you only have 2 hours a week, if you have 10 hours a week, make sure that you're reserving that time and making that time count for you. But estimate the work and carve that out of your day and your week to make sure that you're really putting enough effort into this. Taking a break and thinking this won't take long. One of the things I encourage people to do in my classes is to front end load all the tools that you can and start applying them rigorously. Don't, like, for example, I encourage people to get the LinkedIn Premium service because everything in a job search is done online. And LinkedIn is probably one of the most foundational platforms and tools a person can use. Don't wait to get on the premium service 6 months into your job search and say, gosh, I wish I would have had that to make more contacts. That's just a light example. But there are many things that you should be doing to front end load your jobs transition efforts. And don't walk away with the attitude that this won't take long, because it could take long, unfortunately. The next thing, completing job applications as your only search activity. If you find yourself getting on Indeed every morning and just kind of, exploring what looks good and what sounds good and feels good without a plan, that's probably not going to get you very far. So certainly we don't have time here to talk about the big picture process, but just filling out job applications as your only activity will not lead to success very quickly, for sure. Certainly don't go it alone and isolate yourself. The folks that are on this call today, the folks that are participating in Crossroads and other services like ours, really help you engage and certainly see this as an opportunity to learn from others, be with others, get energy from others, be encouraged by others, and just don't sit in your basement trying to go this alone. It's really important that you participate in a community. We encourage you to take our classes, take coaching sessions, whatever it might be, to connect with other people who care about you. That's so important. I can't stress that enough. So don't go it alone. Basking in the glory of ignorance. Again, getting back to this won't take long. I'm really talented. Everyone's going to be, looking for me and that sort of thing. And that may be the case, but you really have to learn. This is a learning process, and you really have to learn the techniques and skills required to get back to work. It's not something that you do every day, thankfully. And so it is a process that you have to learn. And then lastly, staying stuck in the past. You got to let go of unresolved issues. I know it's easier to say than it is to do, but at the same time, the quicker you can let go, exercise forgiveness if that's necessary from your previous situation or whatever it might be. Just make sure that you're future focused and really setting your sights high and aspirationally looking at your next opportunity. Okay. Again, these are just some quick headlines, some quick highlights. What are some of the do's? I'd like you to use your chat if you can. What are some of the exemplar organizational techniques and things that you use in your life, and maybe some things you've already applied to this situation? And with the chat, if you could just kind of maybe put some things in. Anybody want to share a thought or two with the rest of the group? I need at least one person to help me out on the chat line. Anybody brave enough to put a chat in there? What are things that you've observed or experienced organizationally that have helped you with your transition so far? Have a routine. Great. Super. Thanks, Tom. One more. How about two more? Chunk timeout. Yep, that's what I was mentioning earlier. If you've only got 4 hours, make it the best 4 hours you can. Dedicate that time. I can't pretend that everyone's got 40 hours to put to their job search. Whatever time you do have, dedicate and make it work for you. One more. Anybody? One more? Keep track of steps. Good. Who I've contacted. Perfect. It's fantastic. Have specific goals. Great. You guys have read my slides. This is perfect. Good. Thank you. Thank you. These are great suggestions. I appreciate it. All right, let's move forward here. Hang on a second. All right, here we go. Okay, so in the spirit of what Brian was talking about in terms of getting to know yourself, I think it's really important that people have a development plan while they're in transition, and that development plan is grounded in kind of the realities of the market. If you've been in a company for 5, 10, 15, 20, 25 years, by default, you're outdated because you've been consumed by this company culture that you've been in. And now you're out of work, trying to find the next opportunity, trying to find what those aspirations should look like as you move forward. You really have to be very, very introspective and understanding, what are the new skills, what are the new talents that people are kind of, buying or hiring for these days that really help me become competitive. So I use this SWOT model process to kind of explain this, and everybody is familiar with SWOT. You've got strengths and weaknesses of the product, like, which is you, and the opportunities and threats, which is the marketplace. So as Brian was telling us, it's really important to know you. So you really have to know, which is on the strengths and weaknesses, really, what is your talent? What are the exemplar stars and behaviors and tasks that you bring to the marketplace? And as you go out and talk to people, when you're doing your networking, you really have to be very observant about, what are the new opportunities there in the marketplace that require a more depth of skills. For example, I use the example of software engineers or so forth, where people might be in a company and they've been working on 2.0 for the last 10 or 15 years. They get out of the marketplace and they find that 2.0 is obsolete. Now they got to work on 4.0 to 6.0. There's a gap. So understand really, what are the gaps in your skills, and actively pursue development opportunities to fill those gaps. You're also going to find things that are threats, which basically mean that the opportunities that you thought were there just aren't there anymore. I'm in the learning and development field. I'm currently in ed tech. I've spent years running training organizations and so forth for big companies. And if you're, for example, an instructional designer who grew up in the kind of paper and pencil era and haven't really adopted the e-learning platforms and authoring tools, that sort of thing, which is really what you do today to do instructional design, boy, you got a lot of learning to do. And those paper and pencil techniques just don't exist anymore. Or if you're a stand-up trainer in a classroom, well, everything's on Zoom now. So you've got to learn those new technologies and become very agile with those. Those are just really quick examples of what I mean by understanding the marketplace. Where is it today? Making sure you're asking these questions, and then transferring that knowledge into an active development plan, and then making that part of your organizing journey. Carving out time to work on you in a very systematic, deliberate fashion. And that's what's meant by saying shoring up the weaknesses through an aggressive plan. You got to shore up those weaknesses, make sure that you're learning and applying these new techniques to your journey, and making that part of your organizational system. Okay? So your plan, should be grounded in goals. So part of that goal setting is really, what is your target position and how is it aligned with your strategy? And so that's a kind of a fundamental first step. And in order to come up with that goal, you really have to kind of respect your past. I call it your job DNA. Where did you come from? Where were you before this transition? What industries did you work in? What was your profession, obviously? Locations, functions, and that sort of thing. All have to be respected and accessed to develop that new goal going forward. You can't just, try to recreate yourself when you're out of work. I tell people in my groups, if you want to be a neurosurgeon, that's great. Let's get back to work first and then work on that plan to become a neurosurgeon. So grounding your organizing system around where you want to go is really critically important. And of course, we all are familiar with the SMART process for goal setting. And this is really important because it provides specificity to your goal setting plan. Being specific, making sure things are measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound is really, really important. So the basic, construct for looking for a job and your organizing system is in front of you right here. Goals, what are you trying to achieve and by when? People might have very aggressive goals. They're saying, gosh, I want to be back to work in 3 months. Well, that's great, but you got to break that down in terms of the steps. And the things that you have to achieve before you get there, obviously. So it's a process once again. What is your daily and weekly pipeline plan? What level of activity is required to achieve your goals? And then what are your metrics and measures? How do you know you're making progress? And what tools are you using to track the progress? So in terms of process, this is very much a pipeline management process. Those of you that are in sales and marketing understand this very, very well. You got to put a lot of activity in the top of the funnel. So assuming this is a funnel, you have to be out there doing your discovery research to understand what companies are out there, who do you want to start working with, setting your targets, and then start having initial contacts with people in those companies, and you can access them through LinkedIn, obviously. So those suspects turn into prospects when you start to learn more about these companies and people and align those with your goals. Then hopefully opportunities become available in those targeted companies. And now you have a qualified prospect. You apply for those jobs, for example, you leverage those contacts and networks to help you make relationships with the human resource people or the hiring managers. And then hopefully you get interviews, offers, negotiation, and hire, and so forth. The whole point of this slide is this is a system that's built around a pipeline, a funneled channel kind of opportunity, and you got to put a lot of activity in the top to make sure that things pop out the bottom, okay? So organizing tools, the KISS method, there's some fundamental things that need to be thought of here in terms of tools. Number one, and this was mentioned in the chat, you have to have some kind of a tracking document for your pipeline activity. I mean, the easiest and most readily available tool is Excel, clearly. And you can set up Excel spreadsheets any way you'd like, but it's really important to track that pipeline activity using something like Excel, because you want to make sure your tools are dynamic and they can change when you have new changes in strategy. Outlook, of course, to help you schedule and track appointments. I use OneNote for everything in Microsoft. I'm a Microsoft guy. I'm not a. I'm sure there's similar tools in Google and in the Apple world, but I happen to use OneNote, and this helps me catalog and document all my discovery, research, and meetings. That's really important. And then hard copy filing systems. You still have to catalog paper artifacts sometimes, so to make sure you've got a filing system that allows for that. The key is using robust tools will help you expand with your needs. So, I mean, I don't recommend managing a job transition process in just your phone or at the back of a napkin or something. You really have to put systems in place that you're comfortable with, that you can use to track all this activity. Okay, and then the old plan, do, check, act cycle is really important. I'm a Lean Sigma guy. I use this concept a lot. You really have to monitor and evaluate your plan and change it as you go along. I recommend that people do this at least every 30 days or maybe every couple of weeks to make sure that you're on target and really moving things forward in a very systematic way. And that's the point. Eliminate the chaos, put a system in place, and make sure that you're managing using that system. Okay, huge topic to highlight. Certainly, we could spend a whole day workshop on this topic, but these are just food for thoughts and things that I would hope that you consider as you go forward. And please, if there's anything in the chat line you want to share at this time, I would recommend that you use the chat to do that. Love to hear from you if you've got any key notes of wisdom or anything you want to share. Any ideas, thoughts, comments? Okay, I'll turn it back. Oh, how soon should we circle back with people after networking with them? Depending upon the purpose of the networking relationship, certainly if you're in the throes of interviews and looking for a callback or something of that nature, I would say that every couple of weeks is a good cadence, so that you're not bothering people. But I would say that certainly a week or two, if you're somebody who's really key to your process, don't wear out your welcome, but every couple of weeks wouldn't be a bad cadence to use. Anybody have any other ideas? Thanks for that, Jake. The thing with the networking is I encourage you to really be proactive. I hear a lot of time from folks in my class, well, I went on LinkedIn. I wanted to get to know somebody at United Healthcare. I sent a message to one person in LinkedIn and never got back to me, so I'm never going to do it again. And the idea there, of course, is that may be true and that could be the case, but unless you've tried to reach out to 10 or 15 or 20 people, you really don't have a good testament that it works or doesn't work. So just be very, very proactive when you're trying to reach people in companies, because 9 times out of 10, people will respond. And if the first couple don't, then just keep trying. There's nothing wrong with that. LinkedIn is a professional tool. People expect to be, marketed to, if you will, or reached out to. And so give them that opportunity to get to know you by asserting yourself using that tool. Okay, Skip, thanks.
Thank you, Rich. Great information. And you've pretty much gone through a laundry list of all the things I didn't do in my job transition. Oh my goodness. That would have gone a lot more smoothly if I had been aware of your teachings when I was in the throes of job transition. But maybe those of you on the line heard a few things, and I hope you did, to pick up. But a lot of it obviously is about just getting organized and having a plan and sticking to the plan, and then adjusting as need be. But at least have a plan to adjust. So thank you, Rich. Really, really appreciate sharing your wisdom. What I'd like to do now is go through some of the many resources that Minnesota Crossroads has for you in your job transition. And they are some really, really cool things that are available. When I was in job transition, I had started my own company out of college, and I'd never looked for a job. So I had no idea what was out there, or really what to do. And so groups like Minnesota Crossroads was incredibly helpful to kind of help lay that out. And so this group's been around for many years. It's part of a national organization. And so incredible resources that are available just to you. And you know what? They are free, which is the best kind of resources, right? So let me touch on a few. The Minnesota Crossroads in Minnesota is kind of headquartered out of Grace Church in Eden Prairie. And then we have 2 other churches that we work through, Woodbury Lutheran and North Heights Lutheran in Arden Hills. When things were pre-pandemic and in person, there were live meetings every week and certainly once a month at those venues. And how cool when we were in front of other human beings and got together, and we're getting back there, but doing it slowly. And the numbers during pandemic have gone way down for job transition groups. And so as they build back up, we look forward to getting back in person. But those are the 3 groups that house our organization. The thing that you need to write down and commit to memory is www.mncrossroads.com. That is your go-to as far as the resources that Minnesota Crossroads has to offer you, and of which there are many, including jobs that people are sending into that resource on an ongoing basis. So it's something that you want to be checking on an ongoing basis, because it changes not only on new things that are added, but just the vast amount of information that is available to you. And there are ongoing opportunities for you as far as resources. On a weekly basis, there is a group called Networking with Grace that actually meets right after this meeting every Thursday between 9 and 11, run by Wes Tang, who's been running it for many years, and Wes Roper, who do a phenomenal job. One of the best networking groups for job transition that I've seen. And so you do have to sign up like you signed up for this. It's, again, free, and you even get a roster of contact information for the people that attend the networking meeting to help facilitate networking. So you will find that to be incredibly helpful. Also, there is online coaching available, one-on-one. So if you have questions about, geez, I'd like to somebody kind of look over my resume, or I'd like to do a mock interview, or whatever it might be, there are people like Rich and me and probably 30 others that come from various backgrounds and careers and industries that are available for you. And it is something that everybody's got kind of their own perspective. My suggestion would be reach out to a lot of people and network with a lot of people, because you will get some, everybody has an opinion, and some will resonate more than others with you. And that doesn't make them right or wrong, but they're maybe right or wrong for you. And so the more you can get, the better. And then hang on to the stuff that kind of makes sense and resonates with you, and throw the rest away. That's just fine. We're all different. And so, but put yourself out there to expose yourself to different ways of thought and different bits of information on the whole job search process. And so that is available at any time. And also, we're big believers in prayer and the power of prayer. There are people praying for you that you don't even know about, that pray over this group, pray over the people that sign up for this group. And so if you have a specific prayer request, please reach out, and we will be happy to pray for it. One of the things that Rich has been so incredibly helpful with is taking on the lead of a group for our 8-week classes. And they're starting every month with new classes, basically on how to get through the job transition as quickly as possible to end up with your dream job. That's what the small groups talk about. And you go through with a small group of other people, and you can kind of share in their journey and benefit from their perspective. Really, really helpful. And as you can see, it goes through pretty much every element that you can fathom in job transition. And again, start every month, so don't hesitate to reach out and get into one of those groups, because you will find it very, very helpful. We also have a LinkedIn group, which is so helpful to be a part of, because it allows, and it's a venue where the alumni that have been through the program can come back to give back. They are available. So if you are looking to get into a specific company, go on this group, and you will probably find somebody that has been through Minnesota Crossroads program that is at that company. And I'll tell you, if you want to network with somebody and you can find somebody that's been through job transition themselves, they are fantastic to network with, because you know what? They feel your pain. They've been through it. And as we know in job transition, a lot of it can really suck. It is not fun. And people that have been through it understand that better than anyone could that has not been through it themselves. And so they are typically very willing to extend themselves and their contacts and their wisdom and whatever to help you in your job search. So the LinkedIn group is a great way to tie into people like that. The other thing that we've developed, which is an incredible tool, is that we have a YouTube channel, MN Crossroads Career Network. And the presentation that you heard from Rich today, and I hope you took notes, I tried to, a lot of information, you may have missed stuff. Well, that will be available to you on the YouTube channel, as are many of the presentations that have been given in past years. And we have had nationally known speakers and authors and just incredible resource of information. And it's available to you whenever you want. You just go on, look through the topics and pick the ones you want and press a button, and they are presenting directly to you. So it is a treasure chest of information and things that will benefit you in job transition. So use the YouTube channel. It is fantastic, and you will really enjoy the vast amount of information that's there. There's a lot of additional resources, and I'm very proud that my company, Thrivent Financial, has a long history of working with and supporting Minnesota Crossroads. We believe in the mission. We are a mission-driven company, and we believe in give back. And our goal is to really help to teach people to live generously. And that is not only necessarily with treasure, but also with talent and time. A lot of ways that we can give back and live generously. And we try to do that. So Thrivent is there, along with many other companies that support this mission and support it. And one of the things that I was asked to do is put together some workshops, and I did so, and they happen the first, second, and third Tuesday of the month. Topics from financial issues and job transition to market update to what's going on in this just crazy market. Have our experts to kind of break down what we see as what's going on in the market. Not that anybody knows what's going to happen or anything, but just some insights as to what we're seeing. And then the last one on retirement issues and things that you can do to help secure your retirement the way you would want it to be. So if you'd like to sign up for any of those classes, again, the same site that you sign up on this for this event today, and we would love to have you on Tuesdays. I've referenced the people that are involved. Harry Urschel, who runs this program in Minnesota, has put together an incredible team of people that are here for you. As I mentioned, different backgrounds, different career paths, different industries, all represented. But the one thing that brings them all together is that we are all here to help you, and in whatever element that might be. So don't hesitate to reach out. Whether it's in person, by individual, I mean, or by the elements that of resources that the organization Minnesota Crossroads has to offer, all exist for you. Again, the churches we're affiliated with, Woodbury Lutheran, North Heights, and Grace, also provide service. And so if you don't have a church home, feel free to reach out. Any would love to have you. Many still have streaming services available as our world has changed post-pandemic, and probably will continue to have that option. So the point is, a lot of resources for you. All job transitions are unique, and your background and you are unique. But these resources will help you take what you have to offer the market. And really what I found is not only that, but to help me to figure out kind of who I am and what do I have to offer, and how do I best kind of package that in a way that's going to avail itself to the people that are looking. A lot of what Brian had to say as recruiters, talk to people like that. They know what is going on and what people are looking for. And there's resources, whether it's people like that or just through the online venues and things, all available for you. And so use them. You are not in this alone. Most certainly, we're not in this because God is in charge. And he has a plan for you that is beyond anything that you could imagine, even though sometimes it might not feel like it. And I know in my job transition, I kept on occasion thinking, boy, it'd be nice to get the memo, God, if I had an idea kind of what your plan was, because it sure isn't my plan. And a lot of times that memo doesn't happen, but he is there. He is faithful, and he has things beyond what you can imagine. And so keep focused on him and others that are out there to help you, and you will get through this with a job beyond anything that you probably even could have possibly imagined. So thank you for joining us today. I will say we do have the next opportunity comes actually next Thursday evening, not in the morning, in the evening on the 13th at 7 p.m. And Tom Colosimo is going to be talking about networking for job search success. Networking accounts for 80% of jobs that people find. So that presentation will be, if you could use a little sharpening and like to improve your networking skills, join us next Thursday at 7 p.m. We would love to have you. So again, thanks for joining us today. Blessings in your job search, and we'll look forward to seeing you again.